Welcome to the Caregiver Relief Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Carbo, RN. Today's episode is a powerful conversation with two extraordinary women, Sue Ryan and Nancy Treaster. For each of them, there was a moment when life changed forever, the moment they heard the devastating word dementia. Both experienced that fleeting relief of finally having an explanation, followed by the sinking reality of what lay ahead. Sue and Nancy are colleagues and friends of more than 35 years, walk separate but strikingly similar caregiving journeys, caring for fathers, father-in-laws, and husbands, all while managing demanding careers in the software industry. Out of frustration with the lack of real, practical guidance for families, they came together to create the Caregiver's Journey. Sue, a keynote and TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and executive coach, has built caregiving frameworks like massive acceptance and radical presence to help caregivers move forward with confidence. Nancy, a retired software executive and certified caregiving consultant, brings her strategic acumen and personal caregiving experience to provide frank, actionable advice. Together, they've created a roadmap for navigating Alzheimer's and other dementias, offering caregivers not only strategies, but also hope. This episode is sponsored by myvitalvault.net, your all-in-one life organizer for aging adults and caregivers. It's designed to help you securely store your essential legal, medical, and emergency information in one easy-to-access place. Because when a crisis hits, being prepared can make all the difference. Join our Caregiver Relief community, a warm, welcoming space where you can connect with other caregivers, ask questions, share stories, and find support from people who truly understand. Visit community.caregiverrelief.com to join now, because caregiving is one of the hardest and most meaningful things you'll ever do, and no one should have to do it alone. And if this episode speaks to you, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. Every click helps us reach more caregivers who need encouragement, resources, and hope. Thanks, ladies, for being here. I'm excited. One of the threads of most of my podcasts are I interview people that have family members or family caregivers that I have been through the journey, identified a problem, and then provided a solution. With the silver tsunami coming, it's here, but there's more coming. This is desperately needed. So I'm really excited to speak with both of you today. Now, you've both had long and successful careers in the software industry. Now, because it's both of you, you can take turns, but can you share a little bit about your professional backgrounds and how you first met each other?
Sue, go ahead. I love to hear Sue tell the story because she was quite the nomad in her software career.
Okay.
Nancy, her husband, Kim, and I met when we were in our software career back in our 20s. And we worked together at the same company, and we were actually neighbors for a period of time. And I kept getting transferred different places throughout my career, and Nancy and Kim raised their family up in Atlanta and stayed in the Atlanta area. And while we lost touch, being closely connected for a period of time, we saw each other periodically through the years. And we reconnected when her husband, Kim, had a diagnosis, and she had some questions. And we got started talking, and we were talking about the frustrations that we had, the questions that we struggled to find the answers for, and that we felt it didn't have to be this difficult. And we also felt the connection of we should do something about it because we were both so passionate about it, and we're passionate communicators. And Nancy, that led to what we did.
Sure did. And I can't tell you the advantage of being friends with someone for 35 years before you begin. We started a nonprofit together before you get into business with them, if you will, because Sue and I had so much familiarity, so much built-in trust, and we like each other. It puts a power behind what we do. We have a podcast. Our podcasts are very advice and how-to oriented, and they're 25 minutes on the average. But we spend hours and hours discussing the topic, honing in on what exact advice we want to give, and so on. And that mutual respect and trust that comes from 35 years of history together just makes that all possible.
That's exciting that it's hard to have a business partnership. So to know that you guys have a successful one gives us hope for the future that this is going to stick around for a while, this product. Now, each of you described that moment of hearing the word dementia in a doctor's office. Can you take us back to the moment and what it felt like?
I heard it multiple times. I'll give you the example with my husband. We had already discussed the fact that whatever the diagnosis was, we were going to accept it and we were going to be okay with it. And we felt that this was part of our journey of love together. And when we got the diagnosis, it was more of a confirmation for us. In a way, it was a little bit of a peace of mind because now we knew what was going on and we hadn't had clarity. So now, at least, while we would have preferred not to have had that as our diagnosis, what we now had is we had more of a path. We had more clarity toward what we could start doing. And so from my experience with it, it was that way. I also had already previously had some dementia journeys with other loved ones. So it wasn't so shocking because it wasn't the first time I was hearing it.
It's still different every single time you hear it. It's very
It is.
frustrating,
Yep. It's very
frightening.
It is. And it's confusing, I think, because Sue said the first thing you get is this fabulous, oh my goodness, we finally know what this is. But then the next thing you can't help, that wears off, unfortunately.
Yes, it does.
And turns into, now what do I do? And that's part of why we created the Caregiver's Journey, because of that clear hole that we felt about, now what do I do? Or even Sue had been on multiple dementia caregiving journeys before that. What do I do first? What's most important I do right now?
Yeah.
Because she actually already knew all the things that needed to get done. However, that's almost a problem. Having so much that you could be doing and then really helping hone in on how do I break through all the noise of everything that's going on in my head and every advice I'm getting from so many people, or the laundry list of leaflets that someone gave me, or everything I Googled. How do I break through that noise and actually just get down to what do I need to do right now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will tell my listeners out there that the most disappointing thing is when you do get that diagnosis, you have no direction from your PCP or the medical delivery system in any way, shape, or form. You are left out there hanging.
Yeah, that was what I was just going to say is each time we got a diagnosis, you immediately want the PhD in the diagnosis and you want a PhD in being a caregiver, because you're getting two diagnoses. You're getting the medical one and then you're getting the one for you. Each time there were pamphlets, do this, do that for the diagnosis, crickets for the caregiver.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I had no idea, what do I prioritize? What's important? And then, to your very well stated point, Diane, then people start telling you there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this. You don't know if this is something you need to do today or
Yep.
you need to do 2 years down the road. And so it just becomes overwhelming.
Yes. And I know that many times a symptom or a behavior will be exhibited, and you talk to your PCP or your nurse practitioner or PA, and they have no way of telling you. Perfect example, people start to wander. I know we'll get into this, but people start to wander and they just say, just keep them at home. And I'm like, they don't give you any information on how to deal with that, to prevent it or to address it in any way. So you've both been caregivers multiple times. God bless you. What were some of the biggest differences in each caregiving journey?
For me, I actually was dealing with, each one was a different diagnosis. So my father lived with Parkinson's for 25 years. My husband, frontotemporal dementia, for just a little short of 10 years. And then my father-in-law, who I also cared for, Alzheimer's for 6 years. two of those were very dementia focused, but each and every one of them, even with dementia, people will tell you, if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia, because we all know that conceptually the behaviors and everything that go on with someone living with dementia are all different. But what's interesting, and I'll let Sue speak for herself, but part of why we created what we're focused on right now, which is navigating dementia caregiving roadmap, is because there is a lot of similarities from the caregiver's perspective of what you should focus on at what point in time. So while the journeys are different, when someone starts to wander, if they even do start to wander, is different. The fact that you need to be aware wandering is going to potentially happen, and you need to do these things in your house to make your home safe, that's not different. That's important.
And I think, Nancy, you raise a really good point, is that in the guide that we created, we felt compelled to create the guide because there are things that are out there for dementia and for the stages of dementia or for any diagnosis. They talk about that. What we wanted to bring forward is for the caregiver specifically. These are the things, and we're going to help you. One of the first phrases that we hear people say is, "Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. It's overwhelming, and you don't know how to prioritize it." And we wanted to shift that to helping you become underwhelmed so that you've got clarity. Okay, this is going to be important, but you don't need to focus on this now. Here are some things so you could look at it and get a vision into it and start preparing yourself. But it gives you the ability to do it a little bit at a time along the way.
Yes. You really do address the overwhelm that family caregivers feel, not just after the initial diagnosis, but along their journey. And the family caregiver typically feels unsupported and judged by everybody around them. They also feel as if they're failures if they ask for any help or support. So I really appreciate your roadmap because it gives them answers and solutions to problems or to help them foresee what may be coming in the future, because nobody in the medical delivery system has that available to them right now. And that's really important. So how did you move from that sense of relief that you got the diagnosis and then that quick, and then all of a sudden overwhelm comes? What do I do? How did you put that into action?
I know that specifically in each one of the journeys that I had, in my first journey, there wasn't any information out. People didn't talk culturally about the diagnosis. There weren't materials. We talk about being overwhelmed by getting pamphlets on it. I couldn't find anything about it that wasn't written in just detailed medical information.
Yeah.
So part of what it is that now we have access to information. We don't necessarily know what questions to ask. And that was one of the biggest parts of it, is that now some of the things that are helpful are when you go ahead and get the diagnosis, now it's okay, where do we find other people who are journeying so we can journey with them?
Yep.
And where do we find the questions we don't know about?
Yes. I want my listeners to understand that 63% of family caregivers become seriously ill or die before the person they're caring for does. And that's because of all the chronic stress, the lack of respite care, and the lack of knowledge as they're trying to find their way along in their caregiving journey. And one of the things, I love this roadmap approach to care because it really, it addresses things in a way that makes it simple, because we our medical delivery system, our healthcare system is so broken. We are putting more and more pressure and more responsibilities on the family caregiver to provide care that once was provided by professionals, healthcare professionals. And 99.9% of the people providing care have no medical background at all, have no knowledge of or even the terminology. It's what does that mean? And you're right, they don't know the questions to ask to be able to help get over the challenge or help to learn about the challenge. And I can tell you, most caregivers don't even have time to read all the information out there. And so I try too to make things in bite-sized pieces for people. But I appreciate the 25-minute limit on your podcast, because I think that's an acceptable amount of time for caregivers to take time and listen to things. Now, Sue, you talk about massive acceptance and radical presence. Can you explain what that means and how caregivers can apply it in daily life?
Yes, ma'am. My dad was one of my care receivers, and all my life he had been teaching me lessons. And we had an experience together where I was trying to use the lessons that he had been teaching me all my life to keep him safe doing something. And he wanted nothing to do with that. And I felt like I really had let him down. And afterward, I was evaluating it. And I said, I knew he had dementia and I was present to that, but I wasn't really fully present. I'd accepted that he had dementia, but I was still wanting him to think about things the way that he had. And what came to me was what I said is massive acceptance, which means I accept exactly what is in the moment. I don't have to like it. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to understand it. I just have to accept it without judgment of myself, of anyone else, or of the situation. And when I can completely accept it, that allows me to stay absolutely fully present in this moment, which is all we really have, but in this absolute moment. So if I need to make a really challenging decision, I am more present to be able to make that. But then there's also beauty in our journey. We talk so much about the challenges, but there are these moments of little just absolute beauty in that, and we can appreciate those. So massive acceptance and radical presence are just being, okay, this is our journey, and what do we do? And being fully present to being able to make the wisest choices. And sometimes that's reaching out for someone else, because you brought it up earlier where we say should. This eliminates having shoulding, because no, there's no shoulding. We're not judging ourselves or anything else.
I think caregiver guilt is a problem that holds people back from making good decisions or even reaching out and asking for help, because they are often judged. You have the uninvolved siblings and judgmental family members that treat the family caregiver as an absolute, as they have to be responsible for everything. And because the other people in the family, I've seen this so many times, they have to work, they have to do things, but they don't think about things that the caregiver is doing. And that's why I encourage every caregiver to create a family caregiver contract or a personal care agreement where they put in, because caregivers have a hard time setting boundaries and limits. And I tell them, look at this as a job. And when I say that, their heads explode. How dare I insinuate that they're doing this as a job? But it is. And if you do it that way, you can set boundaries and limits. Like if you become incontinent and I feel uncomfortable providing intimate care, I'm not going to be able to do that. I may have to place you or get outside help to help me. Or if you become a behavior problem and I'm agitated and aggressive, I may not be able to provide care for you because I fear for my own safety. Or you may become sexually inappropriate. And it does happen, and it makes especially daughters very uncomfortable. Then you have to put that in there. Think about all the things that could happen and that could be uncomfortable or unable for you to deal with, and put it in a contract. And I also include in the family caregiver contract that you should put in things like, I want these days off each week. And people have a hard time with this too, but I encourage the caregiver to actually reach out and expect the uninvolved siblings and the uninvolved and judgmental extended family members to ask them for help. And if they won't help, then they should at least be financially responsible to help you get care in the home for short periods of time so you can have days off and vacation. And as we're getting this silver tsunami, and we have a problem globally. We have too many seniors and not enough youth, and each generation has fewer and fewer people. So we have an ongoing problem. So we have to provide care as a group. Like, you know how they say, no, it takes a village for a child, it takes a village for a person with dementia. So
Sure does.
now, Nancy, you said that there's a lot of traditional caregiving resources that don't provide enough practical, candid advice. I 100% agree. What were some of the biggest gaps you discovered as a family caregiver?
I did find when I could find resources that were focused on day-to-day challenges, it felt like they were created for professionals. And so I felt like and to be honest with you, the stuff created for professionals is a bit clinical, and I guess that's a little bit obvious, but it's not the same approach you take as a family caregiver. You're not in a clinical environment. You do have a relationship with this person. You do have some sort of mutual respect or trust or dignity that you're trying to create. You're not just there to get the job done. You're
Yeah.
there to try to be the same, to help them as a person in their family. So what Sue and I focus on is we are family caregivers talking to family caregivers about
Yeah.
how to do these same day-to-day tasks, but from a family caregiver's perspective. And it's interesting, but some of the comments that we've gotten, positive comments we've gotten back, have been from people who care for people living with dementia, but aren't family caregivers or have never been. And they say, oh my goodness, y'all's perspective has really opened my eyes to
Yep.
what it means to be a family caregiver in this same situation.
Not only were you guys family caregivers, both of you, but you had demanding professionals. You were working caregivers. And
Yes.
that is a really one big segment of the population that's rarely addressed. So, how did you balance those responsibilities, and what advice would you give to working caregivers today?
In my early caregiving career and combined with my professional career, I wasn't able to self-identify. It wasn't something that was recognized organizationally as something. And so there was a tremendous amount of a burden of the extra layers of work and things like that. So the number one thing I would say is if you're a working caregiver, so say that a little bit different. If you're a caregiver who is also a business professional in whatever your career is, if you have the capacity to have your company know that so that you can adapt the work that you and your team members do, that you could find ways to work together, that's what the number one thing I recommend. And the reason that this should be something that can be straightforward with most organizations is that many organizations have already figured out how to navigate other temporary seasons, a maternity leave, a paternity leave, bereavement, military service. So the concept of this has already been addressed by most organizations. So the place I would start is letting people know so you're not trying to hold that burden in yourself.
And
And
I will tell you, excuse me, I will tell you right now, that is one of the biggest problems with family caregivers. They don't want their employer to know. And it's really a big issue because they'll call off, they'll need to go home early, or they'll come home late, and then they look as if they are a poor employee that's not dedicated to their jobs. Whereas if you really are open and honest, the employers out there are aware of this problem, and they really do. Many of them, I will say, some of them are challenging. I know, I get it, but they will try to work with you in any way. It may be job sharing. It could be a lot of other things. And I really hope that the listeners out here will pay attention to the working caregivers, will pay attention to that tip, because that's one of the most important tips that they should take away from today. Is if you are a working caregiver, talk to your employer, because it's such a valuable, it can make a difference. Because if you leave your job, you're on a journey where you're not paying Social Security, you may lose your health care benefits, and most caregivers go through that, and they can be off work for anywhere from 6 to 20 years. And they really need to look at that.
the other thing I wanted to add, you hit the nail on the head, is otherwise you just look like a poor employee when you're doing what you need to do. The other
Yes.
thing is the earlier you self-identify, the
Yes.
less of all of that you're going to be taking off. If your spouse gets diagnosed with dementia, then you don't have to tell everybody, but tell your boss, tell the HR person,
Yep.
because initially it's not going to cause you a lot of challenges. So
Yeah.
it becomes a growing relationship between you and your work, as opposed to, I've been hiding this for 4 years and now all of a sudden my husband's completely out of control. He's wandering all the time and I have this big issue with my ability to work. you ease your way into it. And that's not as near as dramatic as waiting until it's just a huge problem.
Exactly. These are really good points.
Yeah, the other part about this is caregiving doesn't discriminate. Diagnoses don't discriminate. You've got the CEO and you've got the most entry-level employee, and they can both be in a caregiving role. And
Exactly.
so when everyone has the opportunity to be sharing about it, we've heard some of the amazing things some companies have done. Of course, they do flex hours and things like that. But one of the things that some companies have offered is you can take some of your vacation hours. Any employee can. They could take their vacation hours. They can donate them to a pool so that if a caregiver needed some time off, they could use it. There are also employees that say, hey, I've got time. I could give you respite care. I could come in and help. So employees will they've got a group where you can go and you can find employees who might be able to come in and help. And so when everybody can look at it as a team, they can support it. So you maintain valuable institutional knowledge. And as you're saying, the people maintain their careers and their benefits and things like that. So it makes it a whole healthier environment for everyone.
I encourage all caregivers, family caregivers, to create a care team partner support group in their community and reach out and ask for help, practical help. If, you can get groceries delivered, but maybe you could ask somebody to help put the groceries away because you're busy. Or how about just having someone sit in the home and do an activity with your family member while you take a shower? Or because I have clients that they can't even take a shower or take a bath because they're afraid to leave and I know you girls have been through it, and forgive me, I did call you girls.
I'm not offended by that. Are you, Sue?
No,
No way.
it's really frustrating that there's so many things that caregivers could do. And I have to tell you that people really want to help. They can ask you and you feel embarrassed. You know what? Just say, yes, can you do this? It may be as much as, could you take the dog for a walk? Or you need a ride to the doctor's office. And I say, build a care team partner support group around you so that you can have practical assistance when you need it, and also give you those little breaks to do things to take care of yourself. I think that's really important. So I love that idea that you're pushing or promoting. So now, out of frustration, you guys now I'm calling you guys.
I say it all the time. We're good.
Out of frustration, you decided to build something different, the caregiver's journey. Can you tell us how the idea was born and what it offers caregivers today?
So Caregiver's Journey really started with Sue's idea, but let me come back to how we got there. So when my husband got diagnosed with dementia, as we said, you're lost and don't really know what to do and how to do it and so on. And I went to lunch with some friends. They asked me how things were going. I burst into tears. And they said, have you talked to Sue? Her husband has dementia. And I said, I haven't talked to Sue in a while. So I called Sue up and found that she was a wealth of knowledge on how to handle day-to-day dementia caregiving tasks. Mm-hmm. So I'd call Sue up and say, I'm trying to cut his fingernails and he won't sit still. And Sue says, are you trying to cut them all at one time? I'm like, yeah. Of course I am. She said, stop that. Just cut 2 or 3. And or 1, whatever the number is, and you'll pick it back up later. Might be tomorrow, might be 2 days from now. Get over it. And so when Sue came up with the idea, and I'll let her explain where that came from, she said, because I agreed immediately, because my concept was not everybody's got a Sue who you can just call up and ask these little questions to.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it was your general idea. So why don't you start?
Well, basically what it really was is that both Nancy and I are passionate communicators. We're business professionals. It has been something that we needed to do in our profession, to be very direct, to give good answers, to help people get answers right away and have a value proposition for them. And what we did is we looked at things that were the most frustrating. And I said, Nancy, I wanted to start a podcast, but I did not want to do it alone. I felt like this is something to do with someone else. And she said, I'm in. And we launched it and we put it together. And there are things you can plan and there are things you can't plan. Yes. And you couldn't have planned it. We wouldn't have wanted this to have been our journey to have planned. And yet it was as though I think we've talked about this before, Nancy. It was as though it was meant to be. The timing of it for Nancy, the timing of it for me. My husband preceded hers in his journey a little bit ahead. And so I was a few steps ahead in my part of the journey. And there were things that like we couldn't see. And then there were also the lessons that we wish we'd had because we did it really wrong.
Exactly. We share those completely in our podcast on a regular basis, by the way.
Yeah.
Here's what we did wrong, so don't do it this way.
And people don't get to hear that. And that's really good. And I will tell you that many caregivers, this is another thing, they make their decisions based on guilt, and they use their emotions. And what you do is offer a practical solution, taking the emotions and all the outside noises out. And I like that because decisions based on emotions, and it's how caregivers function, are often most likely poor decisions. And the fact that you make it so easy for them, I really like that. Now, caregivers always feel blindsided by the day-to-day realities of dementia care, as you just said, Nancy, even with just personal care. But there's things like behaviors, communication challenges, and then there's burnout. What practical strategies do you prepare the caregivers to give them to prepare them?
A lot of what we focus on is, as you said, we pick a topic. The realities of caregiver self-care. That's a topic. And then we cover that with the realities of caregiver self-care. We talk about giving yourself permission to care for yourself. And we're 46 topics into it. So there's everything from activities of daily living to how to work with an elder care attorney, to what is palliative care, what is hospice, and so on. So Sue and I are very big believers that knowledge creates confidence.
Yes.
Confidence gives you peace of mind.
Yeah.
And when you have confidence and peace of mind, you are a much more patient caregiver. And so that whole combination is really our focus every day. And that's our mission. How do we deliver knowledge and resources to dementia family caregivers so that they can tackle day-to-day dementia caregiving challenges with confidence, patience, and peace of mind? And we look through everything through that lens. And that's how we created this caregiver's roadmap, dementia caregiver roadmap, is with the lens of, now let's take everything that we've talked about, because we just said we have 46 podcasts. At some point, how do you even start in something as simple as the Caregiver's Journey website? Let's lay it out for you. If you're in this part of your stage of dementia caregiving, you want to listen to this one on communication and this one on memory loss, because these are the first two you want to hear something about, and so on. So if you go to the roadmap guide, you'll see how to actually navigate our podcast and the tools we bring to the table.
Good idea. Good idea.
The other part of it we wanted to try to help people have as much of, and you've brought this up several times, there's the shoulding, where there's the judgment and the guilt and things like that, and feeling like you should be able to do this, and when we don't know, and when there's a diagnosis, we all of a sudden feel like we should be able to do it. Or we remember the until death do us part and the parts in our marriage vows, but that doesn't mean that you take on all of those responsibilities. And we help people have a healthier relationship with themselves as a caregiver, so that they are in a healthier space with their care receiver, and also in a better place to do what you so beautifully brought up, Diane, that we both talk about. When someone offers to help, say yes.
Yes. Not only say yes, tell them what you need.
Yes.
I'm both a professional and a family caregiver. And one of the things I have as a professional, I have no problem. Then when I'm a family caregiver, it was hard because of what family dynamics play out. I'm the oldest, bossy big sister. So, everybody looks at me, rolls, oh, she wants this, she's so demanding, she's this and that. And I am when it comes to providing care. But if most family caregivers, the old dynamics, family dynamics play. So if they were the middle child that everybody picked on and they were the invisible child, they really have a hard time standing up for themselves and saying, I need this. Or if they're the baby, everybody discounts what they say. And it depends on who's providing the care. And then they really have to become strong and really look into themselves and say, I'm not a failure if I ask for help. In fact, it's absolutely necessity for me to continue to provide this care. And that's one of the biggest messages I try to encourage my family caregivers to grasp is it's okay to ask for help. You need help. It's absolutely important. And it's not a failure on your part.
And in dementia family caregiving, Sue and I are very blatant. You cannot do this by yourself. You can't.
I say it too. Yep.
Not
It's
possible.
not just dementia caregiving, it's strokes, it's Parkinson's. I can go into caregiving in itself alone, not just dementia caregiving, because there's so many other things involved. Dementia caregiving, I feel, is one of the most challenging because of all the behaviors that you deal with and the responsibilities. But it is, this is not, I'm telling you right now, it takes a village. And when we have a lack of caregivers out there, professional caregivers out there, it's falling on the family caregiver more and more. And they really have to, I'm trying to encourage this next generation of family caregivers to, hey, reach out and ask for help and make it a requirement in order to do your job and look at it as a job with other people around you supporting you. I think that's really important.
Diane, I honor you for that. It's also, if we can shift the narrative to it's an expectation.
Yes.
We have had the expectation of it that wasn't necessarily written. It was more something that was implied. So there's no reason why it couldn't, but it was like, okay, I'm supposed to take care of them.
Yes.
And if the expectation is not I, but we from the very beginning.
I love that. I love that. That's why I think that the family caregiver contract is really important, because it helps them have the beginning of what you call your roadmap, is what they can and cannot do. I actually have, I think it's 101 questions every caregiver should ask before they start their journey. Because that way it gives
That's
them,
interesting.
oh, I never thought about this. Because you make promises that you absolutely have no idea what you're promising. And then you're expected to honor that promise, and it's absolutely not possible. And there's all those dynamics that people have to look at. So I really love this roadmap idea, and I love your message. It's a necessity. It's an expectation to have help. And I think that's what we as professionals really need to encourage, is that, hey, you deserve help and you are part of a team, and get your teams built and started and have expectations of help throughout your journey. It's just going to make people healthier, happier, and able to stay on. Because I tell her, like I said, but at the beginning of the podcast, 63% become seriously ill or die. Right now, we are seeing Medicare changes have gotten so bad that I'm seeing unsafe discharges to home at unprecedented rates. They have lowered the reimbursement rate so low for therapies in skilled care and rehab that the facilities get a higher level of care to not provide rehab.
Oh my.
And here's the other thing that I don't know if you ladies are aware of this, but Medicare Advantage is actually expecting $200 to $500 a day copay to be in skilled care. That's a whole nother ballgame. And so they're going home between 11 and 14 days, whether they're ready or not. And I can tell you right now that traditional Medicare, they're being sent home on the 20th day, whether they're ready or not. And I've called CEOs of hospitals and physiatrists in the hospitals that are running the rehab. And what they tell me is they're meeting Medicare criteria. Well, here's the irony here. The Medicare criteria has not changed. And while we have 100 days of rehab or coverage in a skilled setting, we no longer are. They always kept them to that 90th or 100th day, and they met that criteria. All of a sudden, if they meet the criteria one day, then they're already out the door because it's all about reimbursement. It has nothing to do about safety, and that's a whole nother ball game. And I'll get off my high horse about that one. But caregivers, we're really in dire straits right now. We have a public health crisis. That's why I think it's so important for people like you that have your experience and you've actually created a roadmap for them, can be so helpful at a time when we are in big trouble. I call it big doo-doo. And I want you to know that's a medical term.
Caregivers are picking up the pieces of everything you just described, right? Family caregivers are. So we're doing things we have no training to do, but that's why we focus on practical tips and candid conversations, because we focus on daily tasks of taking care with someone living with dementia. Because if you can't afford or get professional care, you got to know how to do this stuff. So
and I can tell you, doctors doctors aren't going to help you. Your healthcare professionals that you go to for care or for seek advice aren't going to help you. And it's those of us that have been through the journey, that I've done care management for decades. I can tell you, you are helping them navigate the medical delivery system as well as help in the home and where they're going. And to me, that's priceless, because nobody else is doing that right now. And I really like that. So Sue, you're an author and a course creator, and Nancy, you're a certified caregiving consultant. So you each bring different strengths. How do your approaches complement each other when supporting caregivers?
From my lens with Nancy is that we have a really well-rounded conversation about everything we're bringing. We have personal experience. We have both gotten certifications, so we have training in different areas. And we both have learned how to communicate to the public about things and how to prioritize. And so what's great about bringing the different skill sets together is they complement each other.
Yes.
And we also add, in addition, because I do think the skill sets complement each other tremendously, but we also add the foundational level experiences were very similar. So we feel like we have a real good foundation. But at some point, Sue has experience with care communities. I do not. I have experience with end of life at home. She does not. And so we bring of course, we haven't experienced everything between the two of us, but we've experienced a lot of different things between the two of us. And so we've been able to bring that, I think, to the table as well.
You also have experience with the software, and you're also both good at research, I would assume. That when you had an issue, you looked it up, you did the research, and you found a solution for it, and that's really important, because caregivers just don't have that time or the energy. They don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they need to ask. So I really appreciate what you're doing as far as the roadmap.
The other piece that we've both felt was important that we're doing is when we mention the certifications, what we've looked at is we've recognized we have personal experiences, and we want to also have professional knowledge and be very responsible and respectful in that area as well. So our organization is dementia certified. We're dementia certified for the messages that we provide. So it helps us frame very responsibly the messages that we're providing. And we're continuously looking at other ways to add the more formalized knowledge of what we experienced personally. So we blend those together and take it very responsibly.
Yes. When I write, Google wants you to write at 5th grade level or below. And it's really hard with the medical terminology. So I've gotten in the habit of learning to tell people, define what that word means. And some people find it insulting, and other people say, "Oh, thank you. I had no clue what you're talking about." And it's really, for me, I'm with you gals. Another term, oh no. You're making it simple, and you're making it in a terminology that everybody can understand, because our medical professionals don't always do that. And I always tell my caregivers, hey, you're employing that doctor. You're paying his salary because you're paying him. So don't let him get away. Have your questions ready. And if you don't understand, ask him to put them in simple terms. And if he can't, ask him to bring somebody to you that can help you, because if people are embarrassed because they think that, oh, the doctor's so busy. Yes, he is. But if you look at him as you're the employer of that doctor, and people just laugh at me. But you know what? That's what I look at. My 54 years of nursing give me that confidence to say, hey, doc, could you dumb this down for me? And even I say that for myself, because sometimes they'll say words and I'm like, well, I know what they mean, but I may have somebody with me that don't, especially when I'm working with clients. I just want them to be able to talk to them on a level that they understand. And I'll say, could you bring that down to bite-sized pieces?
I like that. When Sue and I are working on a podcast and we're hashing out through the outline, we'll check ourselves and we'll change words. Yeah, that's a word we're used to because we talk about it every day. But is that really a normal word you'd use in conversation? No. And we slash through it and try to find a more everyday use term to get the point across.
And I've tried to do that too. But I've been doing it for so long, and I've been working with clients on a different at the one-on-one level for so long. I say words I shouldn't say. Whoops. Do. Medical term.
We probably are relieved that you're saying that.
I agree too. I agree with Sue.
But finally, ladies, I really appreciate your sharing your knowledge. It's needed and is so valuable. Actually, what you're providing is priceless. Where can listeners learn more about your roadmap and the caregiver's journey, and how can they connect with you or access your resources?
So if they go to thecaregiversjourney.org, the podcast is under podcast. And the good news is podcast and blogs are both searchable. So you can put in a word like incontinence and it'll bring up all the podcasts where we talk about incontinence, for example. There's a page for a podcast, a page for blogs. There's also a page for guides and worksheets. And the very first guide is Navigating Dementia Caregiving Roadmap. And click on that. You can download it, and then you'll have access to exactly what we've been talking about here today. There's a Contact Us page as well, which has how you contact either Sue or I. Go to the Contact Us page and you'll find it as well. And then it's really hard to contact us because it's Nancy@thecaregiversjourney.org or Sue@thecaregiversjourney.org. So you really don't even have to go to the Contact Us page, to be honest.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
And to my listeners, this will all be in the show notes, as well as we create a permanent page on the site with access to all the different venues for the audio or the podcast, as well as we'll have your information, your headshots, and your information to contact you on the page, so that going forward in the future, they'll still be able to find you.
Wonderful.
To my family caregivers out here, you are the most important part of the caregiving equation. Without you, it all falls apart. So please learn to be gentle with yourself. Practice self-care every day, because you are worth it.